Good morning.
Good morning.
The Finance Committee of the Forest Preserve District of Cook County will come to order. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Beavers? Here. Commissioner Butler? Commissioner Collins? Is absent. Commissioner Daly? Commissioner Fritchie? Is absent. Commissioner Gaynor? Is absent. Commissioner Garcia? Commissioner Gorman? Commissioner Murphy? Is here. Commissioner Reyes? Commissioner Schneider? Commissioner Silvestri? Commissioner Sims? Is absent. Vice Chairman Steele? Commissioner Sufferton? Commissioner Tobolski? Chairman Goslin?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, President. Chairman, Secretary has informed me that a quorum is present. We can conduct the business of our committee. Have there been any changes to the agenda, Mr. Secretary?
There are no changes.
Do any members have any changes? There being none, the Chair recognizes Vice Chairman Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We move approval of the disbursements, item numbers 11 FINA 0167 through 11 FINA 0177 on page 2.
Second by Commissioner Murphy. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. In the opinion of the Chair, the motion carries. Committee reports, Chairman Silvestri. I'm sorry.
Please vote me, please record me as voting no on item number 11 FIN A0174, 175, and 176.
Anyone else? Despite the division of the question, the motion carries. Committee reports, Chairman Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of the Finance Subcommittee on Litigation of the Forest Preserve District and the Finance Committee on Workers' Compensation in the Forest Preserve District, item number 11 FINA 178.
Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Schneider. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. In the opinion of the Chair, the motion carries. Bid recommendations, Vice Chairman Steele.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of bid recommendations found on page number 3, 11 FINA 079 through page number 17, which is 11 FINA 192.
Second. Second by Commissioner Murphy.
What's that?
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. In the opinion of the Chair, motion carries. Revenue report, Vice Chairman Steele. Yes, Mr. Beaver.
Your microphone, Commissioner.
11 FINA 0179. It's MWBE. There's no MBE or WBB on this item.
Leave the.
All the way through this report, there's no MBE, WBE.
Superintendent.
That's correct. This on 179, the
All the way to 84.
all the way to 84. No, yes, that's correct. None of those are responsive to MWBE. We, as you may know, commissioners, at this point we don't have authority to enforce or make anybody comply with MWBE. We can only ask. We are moving forward with our state agenda to get authority from the state to allow us to enforce MWBE.
I thought we passed the ordinance that Forest Preserve has to honor all ordinances passed by the Cook County Board.
We still, the issue for us, though, commissioners, that we don't have authority. Our authority is granted through the state, and we have to go back to the state, and we're working on that. Commissioner Reyes and other commissioners have raised this before. But to have authority to do that, we have to have this. Our Enabling Act has to be amended to allow us to do it. And Dennis White, our chief attorney, is here to discuss.
Leave to hear from Mr. White.
Dennis White, Chief Attorney. Yes, that's correct. Pursuant to the Forest Preserve District of Cook County Act, we only have the abilities and authority granted to us in that act, and right now the act does not give us the authority to take into consideration MBE, WBE. But we are actively trying to get that changed at the state level. We've had a couple of meetings with our lobbyists on that, and hopefully it'll be on the next assembly issue.
You know, Attorney, I've been here 5 years.
Yes, sir.
They've been telling me something different. every year. They've been telling me something different. We're going to do it. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And we can do this and we can do that. Why is it this is the first time I ever heard of the state being involved?
I'm not sure. I believe that we've stated continuously that right now what we have are goals, and it's our goals, but we don't have any authority to make it a mandate.
Never heard that the state was involved at all, okay?
As a special purpose district, the Forest Preserve District only has the authority and the rights granted to us by the state. And so if you look at our law, our purchasing law, and compare it to the MWRD, which is also a special purpose district, you'll see that they have that specific authority in there to actually take into consideration MBE, WBE, and we do not, and that is just what we're trying to get changed at the state level.
All right, I'm going to keep on asking the same question over and over,
Yep.
okay?
Yes, sir.
This is a priority for us, commissioners. This is something we are taking very real action. Once we got here, we recognized we didn't have any real authority, and we know we need to get the authority. I agree with you.
Mr. Beavers, any further? Okay, Commissioner, Vice Chairman Steele, then
Chief
Mr. Murphy,
Attorney Dennis White, can we possibly do something interimly until this state legislation is passed by having the Forest Preserve give additional points to those companies that we encourage to be more responsive with minority participation and women business owner participation? That's something we can do internally. That does not take state law for us to do that.
Dennis White, that would really contradict what we're obligated to do per the state law. Right now, our state law reads that we're obligated to go out to bid and take the minimum bidder for purchases over $25,000.
But the fact of the matter that we can also give additional review points for those companies that are encouraged to be more responsive by what we're trying to do and trying to open the opportunities for minority and women businesses to participate with Cook County through the Forest Preserve. We can't actually encourage that.
Not until we get it passed at the state level.
We need to find a way to do that then.
Commissioner, we can ask, and we do ask, and in some contracts, we've asked vendors to do more, but they're not obligated. We can't legally make them do it, and that's the challenge. And until we get authority granted by the state, then we're stuck on this. And so this is something that clearly we think could have been addressed earlier, but wasn't. But it's been a priority for us. It's our #1 legislative agenda in Springfield. And we've been working with Derek Blada on the county side, and we're trying to get it on the soonest agenda we can possibly get it on. It is a priority for us.
Vice Chairman Steele, does that conclude your remarks?
I mean, that's why.
Commissioner Murphy?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would it be possible for us to adopt a resolution at this board urging the state to make this change? Why don't we go ahead and put something together for the next meeting? Thank you.
Does that conclude your remarks? Commissioner Tobolsky?
Superintendent, who are we meeting with at the state? Are we just, is this just in the hands of our lobbyists? Have we met with leadership, or?
I'd have to defer to Derek Blada, who is not here,
Okay.
but we've talked to Derek extensively about it. I know that the President's office is on board with making this a priority. I can find out from Derek who he's been working with, but the goal is to obviously get it on an agenda. We didn't think the advisement we got is we weren't able to get it on the agenda for the fall. We want to move forward and get. I'm just sharing with you what's going on.
Okay.
So,
can
you can certainly
we have
help
a
us
little
with that.
meeting? I'll be here Monday maybe with him, or?
You got it.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Yep.
Tobolsky, are you? Commissioner Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 9, item number 0185, and the next page 186, I noticed a big difference in the lowest bid and then the second bid. Was there a concern with it? It's and one it's 42,
Yep.
and the other one it's about 23.
I'm going to ask
My math is correct.
Commissioner. I'll ask John McCabe to speak to that. He's our Deputy Director of Resource Management.
Page 9 of 19, 0185, and then the next page 0186.
Hello, John McCabe, Assistant Director, Department of Resource Management. Commissioner, there is no concern with this contractor. The contractor has done work for us in the past and been very good. We checked references. He has a couple of municipal contracts with local villages, and he has gotten rave reviews on the work that he's done there.
So we'll see no amendments or increases on these?
No, this is the bottom line.
Thank you.
Right.
Any more questions, Commissioner Daly?
No.
Commissioner Reyes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to the MWBE issue, Arnold, I know we've had conversations. I've had the ordinance ready. It's on the cooker. I know we've had discussions with your staff and my staff, and I think I want to echo what you said, and we've been working on this, but I think some time frame should be set for the next session, and then move forward with this, because I'm sure I've spoken to some representatives and senators. There's probably a couple dozen of them that would be willing to champion this. So I think the next session should be our goal for that, and I appreciate your cooperation on that you've given my staff on this issue. So thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other commissioners have any? Commissioner Gorman?
Just real briefly, I look forward to working, with my fellow colleagues regarding this, MBE, WBE issue, and implementing actually something sound and, economically, something that would make sense. Because, just looking at this, and I know that it's always been goal-oriented and goal-driven, and I know the Forest Preserve has been working to achieve those, results to make sure that they are within the proper percentages of these firms going forward. But even if we do look at, some of these contracts, there is significant differences, and that's going to really negatively impact your budget as going forward. So we got to put something sensible and something sound in place that makes sense for everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
There being no further questions, Commissioner Steele for the revenue report. Vice Chairman Steele.
Mr. Chair, I move to receive and file the revenue report.
Is there a second? Commissioner, Mr. Topolsky. No, with that, we got sidetracked on another issue. So, before we proceed on considering this matter, I'd leave to receive a report from our CFO, Mr. Thomas.
Good morning, Mark Thomas.
Are we didn't do the recommendations?
The bid recommendation is what he's saying, that we need to go ahead and move and approve it.
Let's move to all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Opinion of the chair, the motion carries.
Got to vote on it.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Commissioners. Mark Thomas. Just going through our revenue expenditure, our finance report for the month. Property taxes continued in October to come in very strong. As I mentioned before, the biggest component of that, you'll see how far ahead we are year-to-date compared to last year. The biggest component of that are TIFs that closed, and we received surplus that was not anticipated, around $4 million worth. And so these are one-time revenues that we are not budgeting for additionally next year. But that's what's pushed us ahead so much during the course of this year. For personal property replacement taxes, that continued to come in very strong. But this should be the last month that we see such a big chunk. There's an increase of $1.3 million from September to October, so a big chunk came in October, and we receive that 8 times a year. We'll receive another additional installment from the state, but that should be typically in December. That'll be a much smaller number. So this puts us strong in the year relative to, you can see the budget, we're already way over budget. 2011 budget was $4.8 million for the corporate fund. We've received $5.4 million already. And then, as I've mentioned before, we anticipate a little bit of a kick up in PPRT for next year, so the budget in terms of revenues for next year is a little bit higher to reflect what we've been seeing come in thus far this year. In terms of some of the golf revenue, concessions, winter sports, equestrian licenses, picnic permit fees, pool fees, most of those are strongly seasonal revenues, and so for the rest of this year, we're not going to have much more in terms of booking additional revenues for that. On the concession number, I do want to point out, if you look at the October 2010 number versus the October 2011 number, that's much higher. That's because in 2010, the Glen Grove horse stables were a number of years in arrears, and they made that up during 2010, so it was a one-time revenue source that, again, we did not see in 2011. We don't anticipate that for 2012 either. And again, winter sports, equestrian licenses, all of those are picnic permit fees, pool fees. Those are all very seasonal revenues. And so for the rest of the year, November, December, you see there's little to no activity in October, and we don't anticipate much activity for the rest of the year. The winter sports revenue tends to come after the new year. And so for December, unless we have a very heavy snow in the next couple weeks, we won't see much in the way of that. Any questions on the revenue side of the report?
We have a number of questions. Start with Commissioner Daley.
Mr. Chairman.
You wish to be
At the last page, in reference to the resident watchman facilities,
Yeah.
that, as you could see, is very low.
That's on the
And that-
expense side.
On the expense, right.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
well, that's part of this, isn't it? Didn't we move both?
I didn't get to that yet, but I was going to point that out on the
I
expense
thought you were
side.
moving.
Yeah.
I thought in the motion, the whole report is being moved. So on this part of it, could you explain for
Yeah.
the public why that's so low?
This is a matter of towards the end of the year where we'll reconcile. These are repairs and things like that at our resident watchman houses, and so towards the end of the year now, November, December, you'll see a lot of those expenses reconciled, and those expenses will show up in subsequent.
And it's
reports.
also due to vacancies, isn't it?
On the revenue side.
Yeah. Well, that's where, yes.
Yeah, this number, the 181 for 2010 versus just the 17,000 for 2011, is strictly the expenditure side. So you're not seeing the revenue side of that here. There is, I think there's about a 25% vacancy right now. 10 out of the 40 or so homes are vacant, and so on the revenue side, we've seen a reduction a little bit. Typically, that'll bring in around 220,000 in revenue, and this year we don't anticipate ending the year above 200,000. So we have actually compensated for that in the budget for next year. So on the revenue side, you're correct. The number will also be down, but this number that we're looking at right here on the second page is strictly the expenditure side, and that'll be reconciled at the end of the year.
Right. Okay. To Commissioner Daly's point, the entire report has been moved. So did you finish your
Right.
Okay. Okay. Then why don't you
Oh, I
do that?
did.
Okay. You got any questions? Why don't you-
Okay, so if I could jump into the expenditure side, the most significant thing on the expenditure side, as we've talked about the last few months, is the salary and wages lines. As a lot of vacant positions have not been filled, we're filling them towards the end of this year. I do anticipate greater than $3 million in budgetary savings, budget to actual, in the salary and wages line altogether. That's the most significant thing on the expenditure side. One big line item, which we touched on last month, that jumps out is the very last line, the $9.5 million transfer out of the corporate fund. Those are the dollars that come out. You'll see that on the revenue side, the exact same number as on the expenditure side. That's the dollars being moved to the self-insurance fund, the capital fund, and the land acquisition fund. And those are the dollars that we annually transfer out from the corporate fund to those separate funds. So those, on a revenue and expenditure basis, those are a wash. 9.5 million revenue, 9.5 million expenditure.
Does that
And that-
conclude your
that
report?
concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to say congratulations on the revenues. I think it's a very strong report, and I'd like to see the county do the same thing next year. That's very good. But also, two questions. First, why so many of the Watchman houses, why are they vacant? 40 houses.
Superintendent?
40? So there are a certain percentage, a number of these we're going to look at. Some, people have moved. Actually, some people have moved recently because they recognize that we're proposing raising the rental rates. So I think a few people have moved out already. Some are candidates for being demolished because they're not in great shape. But I think historically, I don't know that they've always been 100% filled, but there's a certain percentage that have been vacant. We'll make some determinations about which ones we want to keep moving forward. And as you know, there is a item in committee to consider, raising the rates, the rental rates for the facility.
About how many of those do you think will be demolished of the 40 that are vacant?
I'd say just a handful at this point. We're looking at, less than 5 for this year.
Yeah, I would think in this. Now, do we have to rent to specific people? Do they have to work for the Forest Preserve, or
They have to work for
they
the
have to
Forest
work for the
Preserve.
Forest Preserve?
They do, and there's a whole set of criteria that we've revamped over the last year that is specific to, you get priorities if you do a certain type of work for the Forest Preserve. So if you are a person who works in general maintenance or does landscape work, that's the priority person. It shouldn't be me or it shouldn't be Mark because we don't do that work every day for a living. Not every day, right? So we have a whole new set of criteria, which I think we've shared, but we can certainly share with you again. That is revamped.
I do recall that, but now do you send the information out? Do we have are there people that would like to get in, or is there a waiting list or something to get in?
Part of what we're doing now is that we will post it. We'll post it at all of our work locations and online, so that folks who work for us know that they will be available.
Okay.
And we're beginning a process now of notifying the folks who are currently in resident watchman homes that we will start to redo the process again for next year, and that there will be a rate increase once, ideally, as we have to wait, obviously, for that to be approved by this board, but what the new guidelines are for everybody. And so there will be some turnover. Some people will leave because they feel like it's too much to pay, or they want to do something else, or they bought a home, and new people will come into the program.
Okay, and then on this sheet, where does it say salaries and wages? Am I just missing it?
No, you're not missing it. So the expenditure sheet just shows the expenditures by department. Included
so I see.
within that, we don't have it separated out.
You don't
by
have it
line
separate. I
item.
thought you said it's in salary and wages, and I thought I was missing that line.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just stating that everything in the year-to-year, current month difference, and all of the reduced expenditures 95% of that can be attributed to salaries and wages
Gotcha.
separately.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Silvestri?
In reading the report, it indicates, I believe it indicates a surplus in fees over expenses for the pools. Is that correct?
No, so you're just looking on that first revenue page?
Yes.
So that's strictly revenue comparison, year to year.
So the revenue for the pools went up 169%?
The expenditures for pools,
169%. I'm a little confused. So the first page is revenue.
first page is revenues, second page is
Okay.
expenditures.
I see it now. I
The pool
apologize.
expenditures are hidden within the not hidden, but are included within.
We don't use the word hidden.
Are included within the recreation line item.
Transparency is the key word today.
They're included within the recreation line item.
So do we have a bottom line as to whether the pools are generating more revenue than they cost, or are they losing money?
Is that part of your report you want to go? Or
Do we know? Is there somewhere that shows us that pools are making money or not making money?
Yeah. I'm going to ask Mary Lariah to speak to that. We actually, at the request...
Is it true she goes to the pool a lot?
I don't know. Mary could answer that.
Check it out.
We all visited the pools a lot more this year, though. I can tell you that. I personally did. But I'll ask Mary to speak to some.
We distributed before the meeting a report that contains a lot of I'm sorry, Mary Lariah, Deputy General Superintendent. We distributed a report from our consultant that was just completed yesterday and printed for you that does have the information about 2010 to 2011 pools. We did reduce two important things: reduced expenses in labor for all the pools by over $100,000 by the reduction of overtime and better scheduling. And then the second key item is that Wayland Pool at this point generated a profit.
Yes.
And there are several recommendations that, first time in memory, and we should be
You
able
mean
to
the
improve
Wayland
that.
pool that's in my district? Is that the one?
That's right,
Oh,
the
okay.
Wayland Pool that is in Commissioner Silvestri's district.
Yeah, that's why it rained revenue. Anyway, go ahead.
And that's the exceptionally good news from that report. The recommendations we will be following through on, and there are numerous recommendations related to increasing revenue that we will be incorporating next year.
Okay, so the pools basically all the pools generated more than they cost.
No, only Wayland when we broke them down, but the pools in general reduced their expenses by over 50%. I mean, reduced their loss by over 50%. So we're moving definitely in the right direction.
That's the pools comprehensively altogether?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so we're in the right direction. Is there any indicator of where the pool patrons come from?
No, we don't have.
We don't have a tracking system?
When they purchase a family pass, we know that, but that is the smaller amount. We usually do day passes.
So that's something we're working on comprehensively.
What are you working on?
Working on, number one, we need the technology that allows us to track people's information better than what it is now. Right now, we just have different databases for different things, and we've not historically collected all the information that we would need. So moving forward, we are collecting more of that type of information so we can know where those folks are coming from, for example.
I imagine they don't come from far away. I think people come, I don't think people are driving in from Rockford to go to our pool, is my point.
Probably not. It's probably a local
Probably
draw.
local.
That's correct.
But they're close enough to the neighboring counties to draw some of them.
Sure, that's very possible.
And I don't think that's so bad. I mean, we want the revenue.
We do.
As long as you have the space.
Right. It's a very popular pool.
Okay. We just received this report, so I
Yes.
apologize for asking
no.
questions where the answers were here, but we just received this as we were walking
Absolutely.
in. so-
It just was completed yesterday, and we wanted to get it to you. And certainly, we can talk to you more about it.
Thank you very much.
And I'll just point out for the record that during my first term, I asked that very question, if they were tracking who was using the pool, about got my head bit off. And I was referring to the kids from Niles and Park Ridge, which are across the street, using their pool, but we're using our pool at that time was for free.
Yeah, ours
So,
were free, and theirs were
yeah.
Oh.
So,
free
Commissioner
and
Beavers?
fee. Free and fee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the land use fees,
Yes.
are we collecting money from the golf course that we sold?
So these land use fees, Mark, I believe, are not the golf courses. Yeah.
That does not include the golf courses. These are permits that we issue around the district, but not including the golf courses.
Well, are we collecting money on for the golf course?
Yes, we are.
For the
So-
rent?
Yes, we are. And that's
How much are we collecting then?
Well, the number on here is the golf course operations. Are you asking about a specific golf course or generally the golf courses altogether?
Specific, the golf course that we bought from Commissioner Snyder and his family. Are we getting any money?
Oh, I see. Okay. So, Commissioner, you're talking about Rolling Knolls,
Right.
Right. Okay. So we are no. We got the initial amount that what we paid for the golf course initially, and then at this point we still have 2 residents who are still on site. We recently went to court and got a direction from the judge to assess what the rent fee should be.
I can't hear you. You have to speak a little louder.
Okay, I'm sorry. We recently went to court and got a ruling from the judge on what the rent amount should be because everything related to this has to be determined by the judge. It's not just us making a recommendation. And so the judge determined what that amount is. And so we've gone back to those residents and said, here's what you owe us based on when we took ownership of the property. One of the residents has, we're going to ask to give them formal notice to move. We've had some previous correspondence with them about a leave date. They've not left yet, so we're formally going to pursue eviction with one of those residents, and also seek back due rent or past due rent. And then the other resident, we believe that the family is going to be asking this body at some point for a life estate so that the one resident can remain on the property until they're no longer able to. But they have to pay a rental amount.
I understand the judge is involved, but
Yeah.
we bought this property over a year ago, right?
Yes.
All right, almost 2 years. It's
Okay.
going in almost 2 years. And we haven't collected one dime. The golf course operated during the time that we purchased it. And we still haven't gotten any money.
Well, the golf course
What
has been
is-
shut down, Commissioner.
What is the problem?
The commissioner, the golf course is shut down. Since I've been here, it's not been a functional golf course.
You don't know whether it was operating or not, but people were still there. You don't know whether
No,
they was
we know.
operating it or not. Nobody was watching it.
No, that's not true, Commissioner. We've been out there, very actively out there, asking and having a lot of people who did reside in a place to move. So it's a very complicated transaction, and frankly, some of it should have been handled differently before we came into ownership, but it wasn't. So we're trying to clean it up. But it has been shut down. Now it's Dennis who's been around for the length of the agreement to talk a little bit more about it.
You keep whispering. Either I'm hard of hearing or.
I'm sorry,
or
Commissioner.
you keep
I'll speak
whispering,
louder. I'm not
You
whispering.
sound like you're in a ditch. I want to know when are we going to get some money from the golf course then? When are we going to get some money?
Dennis White, Chief
It's
Attorney.
not going to be a golf course.
All right.
2 things. I think at the July 2011 board meeting this summer, the board directed the district to go back to court and to obtain a valuation for the use of the property commercially, as well as a couple of the residents on the property. So we did that, and on October 25th, we received a valuation of the value for the rental properties. We still have not achieved or received an official valuation for the value of the operations. There are a couple of additional documents that the court is still waiting. Tax returns for the period in question are the documents outstanding, and as soon as we get those, we have hired a professional CPA that's working with the court to also determine a valuation for that back due amount.
Commissioner Beavers? I'm thinking that you're looking for golf revenue.
No,
I don't
I'm not
believe
looking for
it's
golf
not. Oh,
revenue.
okay.
I'm looking for rent. I'm looking for money owed to the
Okay,
Forest
I understand.
Preserve for the rental of that property.
Okay.
We sold the property. We got people living on there. They're not paying any rent. All right? We had people living there during the time that the golf course first closed and was still operating. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I just want to make sure that
All right.
you understand that they're not operating as a golf course. Any other questions, Mr. Babers?
You know, Mr. White,
Yes, sir.
you talked all around of what's actually is going on, and I still haven't learned nothing, okay? Thank you.
Commissioner Gorman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is in the finance report for Mr. Thomas. In looking at the revenues, it's actually stating from 2010 to a 2011 budget, $1 million less in revenue. And then the expenditures is increasing from 2010 to 2011 to $750,000. I'm just curious where the difference in the expenditures are coming from the $750,000. Oh, no, excuse me, it's actually 750 less, so there you go. So that's an offset. Is that correct? With the revenues being down $1 million from budget 2010 to 2011, 58 million to 57 million?
Yeah, the 2011 budget was just a lower budget. These are strictly the budget numbers that are not in gray.
Okay.
So the actual numbers are in gray. So these first two columns are just the budget numbers, and the 2011 budget was on both sides, because it's balanced, was a little bit less than the 2010 budget.
Right, so it's just basically an offset to make it balance?
It's just to balance to zero, correct.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
strictly budgetary numbers, not actuals.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Tobolski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought I'd heard you mention earlier that there was almost a $3 million savings due to unfilled positions in budget year 2011. Is that correct?
That's, yeah.
Okay, where is that money going?
Well, at the end of the year, when the books are closed, it falls to the general fund balance of the district. So as we close the books, we will see what the actual revenues were for the entire year, actual expenditures, and the balance falls literally to the fund balance. And then each year, that's this very last line on both of these, this fund balance transfer, the dollars come out of fund balance. So typically what the district has done is balanced its budget every year. Whatever's left over in terms of revenues being less than expenditures anticipated, will balance the budget by taking funds out of fund balance, and then the board gives us appropriation authority to spend out of the fund balance.
So like you roll over into next year, or?
Yeah,
Some
you'll
of it
see.
might-
You'll see in the 2012 budget, there's a request for appropriation authority to balance the budget with some fund balance.
I see. Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Commissioner Sufferton?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, the $4 million that you said was additional TIF, that's the surplus that was declared by the city of Chicago?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? They're bringing on the question is, shall the revenue report be received and filed? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. In the opinion of the chair, the motion carries. Before we adjourn, allow me to wish all of you a very happy holiday season. I'm sorry, add
Mr. Chairman?
to the roll. I'm sorry, we came in and we got sidetracked.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I neglected to mention it earlier. Could you ask the secretary to vote me as present on 11 FINA 0182 and 0183?
So noted, despite division of the
And
question. motion carries.
0184.
Despite the division, the motion carries.
And 0185, I'm sorry.
And we said
And
the writing, are you okay?
0186. Shall I do it again?
No, I think we've got it.
182 through 186, present.
So noted. Despite the division, the question motion carries. Again, a very happy holiday season to you and your families and a healthy 2012. Commissioner Gorman moves that we stand in adjournment. Second by Commissioner Silvestri. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Opinion of the chair, motion carries. We're adjourned.